Hey everybody, so 2 weeks ago I shot out a couple of extremely expensive guitars versus a couple of maybe slightly more affordable. We had an extremely expensive Les Paul and an extremely expensive PRS, and we put those up against a really beautiful looking Spectre Omen Elite, but it's only 499 bucks. And there's really amazing Harley Benton Don't Call It an SG for only 269 bucks. This is one of my absolute favorite guitars because it just goes to show you can get something truly amazing for not a lot of money these days. Let's put it this way, if I was making very expensive guitars, I'd be extremely worried about brands like Harley Benton putting out guitars like that, because marketing bullshit is only going to get you so far, and some people are actually going to be able to see through the fog of that and realize, maybe there's not a huge distinct tonal advantage whatsoever. Now, apologies to you guys, this video is about 5 days late. Unfortunately, I was feeling a little bit under the weather, and today I'm finally able to shoot. The initial shootout got a lot of great feedback, and I thought I'd share some of the comments from the experts right now.
Just a suggestion, before doing the blind test, how about we get a run where we can see the actual guitars? Trying to identify something we've never listened to before doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's the whole point. Guitar manufacturers and guitar players make all kinds of claims about how distinct and awesome their guitars sound. And if that were actually true, we should be able to pick them out of a blind test, like with no problem at all. They should be extremely discernible and extremely identifiable just by hearing them. You making the claim you want to see them first just validates the whole experiment right there. That guitar players listen with their fucking eyes! And when manufacturers start making batshit crazy claims that their tuners are going to give you more mid-range or start selling pickups for $999, I mean, like, in my opinion, that's just fucking crazy, especially when most people can't pick the guitars out in a blind test.
The guitars sound obviously very similar, although there are subtle differences. However, one should hear the guitar first. It's like asking which voice belongs to which human without having heard them before.
However, one should hear the guitar first. Interesting point. In fact, I did let you hear them first. I didn't let you see them though. Once again, let's make a determination on what's the best sounding instrument just based on what we're hearing.
Obviously, there's no way to tell which is which in this video. The YouTube compression destroys any nuance differences an expert would most definitely be able to hear.
Yes, okay, all hail the experts out there, the experts that weren't able to determine which guitar was which because, of course, all the YouTube compression. Interestingly enough, when it comes to you guys telling me how much my mixes and my recordings suck, the YouTube compression never gets in the way of that. It's only when you guys can't tell the difference between one thing or another that the YouTube compression becomes an issue. Now, I've noticed this phenomenon happens quite a bit. It's like a positive reinforcement thing. It's like, new tubes always sound better than old tubes. Nobody's ever complained about dropping new tubes in their amp and having it sound worse. And the same thing with pickups. Oh, I put new pickups in my guitar, therefore it sounds so much better. I find that very curious. Might have something to do with the dollar amount being spent? I don't know.
I'm totally for these tests, but this one confused me because I heard the differences from guitars in the first test. Guitar A is kind of close to Guitar D, and both are different from guitars B and C, which are kind of the same. But then most of those differences were very much diminished in the second test, which makes me wonder if they were restrung with the same set for the first test, or the differences were just due to the strings. Can't tell which guitar was removed, but for the best sound for me out of all of them was Guitar A the first test. Good work, as always, Glenn.
Yeah, clear as mud, eh? Okay, so that's a vote for Guitar A. And I gotta say, I've been through so many of your comments, and honestly, it seems like people are just kind of guessing, spitballing, okay, this must be this guitar, this might be that guitar. It's kind of interesting to read the comments. I invite you guys to go back to that first video and take a look at what some people said, and we'll see how many people go back and change their comments based on the revelation coming up in just a minute.
First test, A, PRS. It sounds like a semi-hollow hollow. B, Harley Benton, bigger bandwidth and higher output than a classic PAF. C, Les Paul. Sounds the thinnest and honkiest, so likely the vintage style PAF. D, Spectre. High output, high bandwidth makes me think it's an active pickup. Not sure 100%, but thought it might be fun to give it a try.
Now that video got 1,400 comments, and obviously I can't go through all of them, but I will say this, a couple of you guys did make some lucky guesses, so hats off to you if you did get these right. Anyway, let's check out the results of that first test, this time with the visuals and the dollar values attached as well. Hit it! Once again, I want to thank Mr. Christian Vey for coming out and just doing some awesome playing and letting us use his very, very expensive guitars, and for him not being afraid to shoot out against this. I gotta say, Christian really did like this Spectre as well. It does play quite brilliantly. Now, we also did a second test where we took out one of the guitars and we changed the various string types, because I have been curious to know, like, what kind of a tone difference do we really get from going from string type to string type. We did like pure nickels, we did nickel plated steel, and then we did some flat ones just to see what would go on. I even made a trip out to the SIT Strings Factory in Akron, Ohio, just to check out what that's all about and see how strings are made. I thought that was really cool. Now, I did do a test a couple years ago where I tried out my strings versus some Maxima Golds, and the Maxima Golds sounded downright terrible. But when we got into, the SIT brand of strings, I noticed there wasn't as big of a difference as I thought there might have been. And this is really cool. This is what I like about doing tests like this, is because I learned something. Assumptions are destroyed by evidence. The evidence we got said, man, the tone shift really isn't that big. So let's check out a few more of your comments about the different string types. Let's see what we got here.
I preferred guitar D in the first test and guitar B in the second test. String material composition is supposed to make a difference. Nickel strings are said to have less magnetic pull, and the results in a lower output from the pickups. I've never tested this myself, but it makes some sense.
Makes some sense. We're going to find out in just a second how much of a difference it makes.
Just out of curiosity, would the differences between all the guitars and strings used in this test be more discernible through a direct input into an audio interface or something like that? My guess is that they probably wouldn't be more discernible, but a test like that would be interesting to hear.
Well, to answer your question, yes. If you go just direct into an audio interface, yes, the tests will be very much more discernible. If you check out my 10 guitar pickup shootout video I did last year, where, if we put stuff through a high gain amp, guess what? The guitars all sound pretty much the same. I did play the DIs first, and there were massive differences in sound. The thing is, guitar amps will color the sound of your instrument. That's just the very nature of amplification. A DI is designed to give a dead clean guitar signal that you can recreate and do whatever you want to. But as soon as you put something into the front end of a guitar amp, that tone is going to be colored by the amp. In this test, we used a clean 2-rock amp, one of the best clean amps on earth, because I wanted to do a real world in the studio test to see just how much of a variation and how discernible the guitars will be when going through a stellar signal chain. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's surprised by just how little the differences were. Now, given the hype around guitars, pickups, tone wood, and all the rest of the bullshit, you gotta admit, it is pretty surprising to hear that the differences aren't as big as people make them out to be.
I listened through my TV with a Bose Solo soundbar. Couldn't tell a difference, so then I plugged in good headphones. Couldn't tell. Then, of course, I thought, aha, it's the internet mobile connection legit is weak, so I downloaded the video through my wired laptop into downloads. Still couldn't tell, so my conclusion is this. Glenn likes to drive me mad and make his point. It's all marketing, and to make it even worse, he compared clean tones just to make his point, which is, we're just gullible idiots. Thanks a lot, Glenn. P.S. I think you're conspiring with my ex to prove I'm gullible. Nice job.
Okay, guys, I just want to make this really clear. I'm not trying to make anybody feel small or dumb or unintelligent, except for the bass players. We all know they fucking deserve it. However, guitar players, all I'm trying to do here is inform you. I'm trying to provide a counter to the deluge of marketing bullshit out there and help you make an informed choice. Let's run the second test with the different string types. Gotta say, I'm pretty surprised that the nickel strings didn't stand out from the other ones as much as I thought they were going to. I thought we were going to get a massive shift in tone. It was pretty subtle, it was discernible, but it really wasn't that big of a difference. And honestly, I thought they sounded pretty fucking good. It just kind of dulled up the sound ever so slightly, but not by a long shot. And with no visual being there, it certainly didn't stand out from the crowd. But the minute people see, oh, $269 Harley Benton, that has to sound like shit. Well, that's just not really the case once you take that visual away. Remember, guys, listen with your ears, not with your eyes, because you'll wind up saving yourself a whole lot of money.
Guitars do sound different from each other, which is why I have more than one guitar. But then I don't play metal where the signal is completely mangled by gain.
I've often said on this show, there's no such thing as a stupid question, but there are plenty of stupid statements, that being chief among them. In case you weren't paying attention, pal, we played clean tones through a 2-rock with no gain. I wonder why you couldn't pick out which guitar was which. Why you couldn't pick out the Les Paul. Why you couldn't pick out the PRS. As Vin Viego said, Answer that and stay fashionable.
Why was the String Factory tour one of the best things I've seen on YouTube in a long time?
Hey, I thought it was pretty cool too. I'm glad you enjoyed that part. For those of you guys who might have missed the first video, check it out. I do a little 5-minute tour through the SIT Strings Factory. That was an awful lot of fun. I've never actually seen guitar strings being made. Pretty cool operation they got there. A lot of great people they got working there, working really hard, and they really take their quality seriously, so definitely worth checking that out. So I just want to make a quick conclusion here, and I want to acknowledge there was a very pissed off German professor who doesn't like my testing methodology, and it's like, okay, fine, you know what? I don't have a robot arm to play guitar to guitar to guitar. All I can do are real world tests here in the studio in what's going to be a typical recording situation for me. But I do appreciate the professor's efforts who dissected my videos and had a couple questions to ask. I don't speak German, unfortunately, so I've got everything kind of secondhand, but it would be really cool if I could get him on the show at some point. We'll see if that ever happens. It might be really cool. Apparently, he's written a very extensive book on the whole thing about how guitar tone is generated, and his conclusion, from what I'm hearing anyway, is that tone wood is bullshit. Big surprise. Anyway, I just want to say this though, guys. There's nothing wrong with buying an expensive guitar, but there's nothing wrong with buying a cheap guitar either. The quality differences we're getting in price versus performance is rapidly becoming narrower and narrower, and that all has to do with modern CNC manufacturing. So don't be ashamed about running on stage with a Harley bent, because if anybody laughs at you, well, they're a fucking idiot.